Hello everyone, this is Coach John here from the Product Architect, where we support educators in helping them to maximize their impact through proven methods. Today we have a special guest, and he is Gary from Spearhead Marketing. So today's topic is going to be centralized on with the rising costs and also AI. What are some of the proven ways to help to acquire leads at a lower cost? I think we're saving money on top of most people mind now with the rising costs. Hello Gary.
Hi.
So Gary, could you just briefly introduce yourself, and then maybe you can take on the first question. In your experience of working with tuition center owners with multiple outlets, what are some of the insights that you have gotten that's working right now in the tuition market? Or I think also can cover education market in general.
So I've been doing tuition ads in Singapore for about the past 10 years, about coming 10 years. I think quite some few changes that have happened over the years. So I think in principle, what works for our client now in terms of the basics still work. That's the first thing. Things like how we structure the messaging, who we are looking out for, which would be parents of whichever class solution they are looking at. As for parents, they only become a parent of a 3-year-old or 4-year-old, or even a PSLE students. They probably become once, or maybe depending on the number of kids they have, just a couple of times. So the market does refresh itself every year. It's not the kind of market where they are buying something from you like every year. As long as you found the right method that works for you, and then keep applying the method every year, it should continue working to some degree. Costs do go up over the years. I think also people who listen to this need to have a basic expectation of that. So your cost of your chicken rice and everything goes up. Your cost of ads will go up. So it's just part and parcel of how things work. Make your marketing still very effective. There's only two ways: you are getting better at marketing over the years as you improve, or you're spending less, because ad costs do tend to go up the more you scale. So if you scale down, sometimes that cost do go down, but the performance might also decrease.
Also share based on market for primary school as well as secondary school. I'm not sure about JC. If you do have some numbers, it'll be helpful. I know that depending on the brand credibility of the center, as well as whether it's a household name, because I know that you do work with big brands as well. Could you give us a rough figure? What kind of cost per lead? Because I think we also want to set realistic expectation. Like maybe people who are new, they are thinking, oh, I think just $1 can I get one lead? But that's not the number. It's much higher. So could you shed more light on that?
When we communicate with maybe the new clients in general and all that, of course, there are certain factors depending on how much you qualify, or put in simple terms, like how long your form is and things like that. How good is your offer? Are they joining a free webinar, just to learn some stuff? Or do they have come down all the way to your center to attend a trial class and things like that? So a lot of these do play a part. I think like what you mentioned, the number of branches and all those kind of things, all these play a part in how low or how high your cost per lead can be. But generally, you can expect it if it's primary and secondary school, then it should be very good long term. I'm not talking about the first launch. So when you launch something for the first week, I think those numbers are not really accurate. Because after you launch the campaign, things will start to stabilize. And then that is actually the real number that you should be looking at. So $1 per lead, $2 per lead, it is possible, but maybe the first day or second day, or the first week at most, just to have an expectation of that. It can be in the 20s range if it's like a webinar or like a very low commitment kind of offer. If it's a higher commitment offer, it could be 50, 60, 70, or even 80. And of course, if you spend more, then it tends to be higher. If you are spending if you don't mind spending $5 a day, for example, then you're just slowly waiting for leads to come in, right? Your cost per lead will likely be lower. If you are spending $50 a day or you're spending $100 a day, then you'll start to see the costs start to rise. So in short, there really are multiple factors that will affect. You just need to know that what action you do and what you should be expecting. Also, another side point would be that the older the student, then the cost per lead tend to be higher. So primary school tend to have the lowest cost per lead, then secondary school, then GC, and so on.
The more you spend, the higher the cost. That doesn't mean that then I spend less, then I'll have lower cost per lead.
Right, yes, but you need to balance that with how many leads you need. So inevitably, if you want 30 leads or you want 100 leads a month, that kind of thing, you have to spend accordingly. But you just need to know that as you spend more, Singapore is not a very big market. Depending on the number of branches and all that, of course, there's limited outreach. So the more you spend, then the cost per lead does tend to be higher.
I think it's also a waiting game. If you have a longer runway, you don't mind waiting, and as the leads trickle in, you can spend less. But if you have a bigger budget and with KPIs to meet within a shorter time frame, you spend more, and definitely you can see the money goes out faster. Maybe after that, you can share a bit more on different subjects, because I think before this Zoom live, we talk about different strategies for different subjects, like math and science per se, and language.
Strategies, I guess mainly if you are... Okay, one of the things we do see is that math and science tend to go well together, and then English and Chinese So when it's a language and when it's a hard subject, things tend to be a bit different. I think if you are assessment books and all that, it does seem to be more popular from what I've seen. Versus like a language subject, maybe they don't require as much resources. It's just a general sense from past experience in marketing. But if you are very good at what you do, it may not be the case for you. If you're the top brand. Interesting, if students sign up with you, they sign up for math, they sign up for science, but they may not consider you to be a language specialist because of. So increasingly more competition, specializing becomes more important in general. Parents might not just want a general center anymore, unless of course you are a big brand. But if you are starting from scratch, it is still useful to position yourself as a specialist. Even if you do math and science, you can do a math version of campaign and a science version of campaign just to look for specific parents. This only applies to if you're a smaller scale.
So having said that, math and science is a good pair, while English can be paired up with probably Chinese.
But actually, they are also quite separate sometimes.
You mean English and Chinese?
They tend to be specialists on their own also. English centers and Chinese centers, I think, using Chinese centers, you see a lot of them. They're probably in Chinese names and all that.
So what can be an example of a simple funnel that they can do?
I think definitely a very simple one that we see a lot out there right now is the learning resource, like free learning resource kind of funnel. So if you have something good to share, it must be good quality. That showcases what is unique about your methodology. If you have something good to share, it could be a cheat sheet, it could be a few pages kind of thing. You can definitely do a simple funnel where they leave you their email in exchange for the resource, and then you can continue nurturing them over email. Email marketing, I think, does still work to some degree. Of course, it's not as good as past when there was a more email golden period kind of thing. But email marketing, I think parents do still check their emails. If you are looking to build a list that you nurture over some time, maybe you do primary and secondary, for example, and you don't mind nurturing them towards secondary school, that's something you can definitely consider. But if you want more direct results, then it will still be getting inquiry for your trial class or for your consultations or whatever.
One of the things to explore,
I think you see a lot of examples out there, so I think you can definitely, other centers are doing it. What you need to do is to stand out by using materials that's unique for you, depending on the curriculum and all that.
From my experience, some of the lead magnets can be those booklet with multiple pages. Some can go as high as 100. The other thing that I'm myself is also exploring, and it does work to a certain degree, is custom GPT. That can be some form of a lead magnet as well. When it comes to regards to funnel, if the front part is lead magnet, and then because it's a multiple step funnel, maybe at least 3 steps, could you bring us through after the first step when they opt in, and we also want to recoup the cost that we put into acquiring that lead? What should the second step be? And then the third step, if there is.
Okay. In general, the best way to look about that is for someone that opted in to whichever is that resource that you provided, what would then be the problem that they had that they wanted to opt in? Correct. The very loose example would be people who buy books would likely want to buy more books. People who are attending classes probably don't mind attending more classes. So if you don't change the format too much, then the chances of success is a bit higher. Let's say if they opted in because you provide some kind of composition solution, maybe writing solution or whatever. So if they're opting in, then they probably have some kind of issues for their child, probably with composition. So what is natural as the next step? For example, you can offer a free composition review or whatnot in exchange for maybe it leads to a consultation or it leads to some kind of call with the parent or whatnot. Then you can take things to the next step and hopefully get signed up from there. You don't want to do a composition leading to a comprehension because that will be a bit jarring or it doesn't really make sense. Then the chances of people continuing is a bit low. So you want to think of how you're making step 1, step 2, step 3 align and make sense with each other.
Maybe I want to sign up for a baking class, and then the offer should not be a dessert class. It should be bake more cakes or bake bigger cakes or smaller cakes. Something that's in the same theme.
You don't want to stay too far from what you have provided in the free resource. So it will start from there. And of course, what you choose for the resource then will depend on what you need to fill up. Maybe you need to fill up your writing classes. That's why you start with the resource in the first place.
Oh, I think that's a good point. So if the end goal is to fill up your English class and you know that it's a comprehension class, then with that end goal, you work backwards. Then you can come up with a material or free resource on probably the top 7 mistakes on comprehension. And I think that's something that I also encourage my own tutoring coaching clients to do is sometimes it's okay to pick 1 or 2 of your best resources and use that as a lead magnet, so that sometimes we also want to give the best to the people. There are simply too many resources around and people actually need help more with implementation. So I think we also talk about for language wise, the ultimate goal is hands-on. The language part is probably more on skills based. That means it's a skills taught in an actual setting. For math and science, probably because of how people perceive that they're looking at more resources like answering techniques for science and also problem sums or heuristics solving for math.
That's pretty much it. I think you also need to identify who, if you can be specific as to what kind of grade of students you can help best, what kind of problems they're facing, I think that's where you can go into more detail about whether it's a higher order thinking question that you're good at, or certain topics like speed, whichever ones that most of the time with that problem, you want to attract people that's also good at that.
Yeah, and I like what you're saying is niche down instead of just saying that, oh, you're good in helping kids with math. Because for every math tutors who come in, I think at the baseline, everyone is shouting that they are good in math. Then how does a parent choose? One of the ways that you mentioned, which I like a lot, is to really niche down. So could you help us like through any proven process that you walk your own clients through? They are very good in, say, math, but how do you help them to stand out? And also in their ads.
So for this, I think you need a comprehensive look of what's in the industry. A lot of my clients found certain positionings that work well, and then we continue to focus on those. Number one is don't be afraid to experiment, because what you thought was the first one might not be the thing that stands out the best. I think you need to know, number one, your strengths. So for sure, what you're good at. Number two, you also need to see what other people are communicating. So you definitely need to look at what are the other, let's say you're a math specialist or something. You want to look at what other people are saying. If there's too many people, if what you're good at is what many people are also saying, then it's not going to help much if you just put that message out there. So I think you also, from there, you can know which are the things you can pick and choose that works for you. That also not many people are maybe emphasizing so much out there. I think there were a lot of trends that happen. I think sometimes people catch on trends, things like that. If there are topical changes to the subject, for example, or there's any unique thing about your classrooms or the way you conduct that you see, okay, not many people are saying it out there, then those are the things that you can try to focus on. Right? But you still have to test, because then you still have to look at the response and see if that also resonate with the audience. So I think if you know, they know what message that will work for you. Even if it doesn't work, I think you can always try again. Facebook only spends as much as you want to spend. So you can always experiment until when you find something that works, honestly, drill down more on it. It's not easy to find something that works, because even with different clients across same subjects, I think we still found different things that work for different people. Surprisingly, if you think you just copy an ad from someone and then just paste it on your site, it may not work the way you think it. Even if it works to get leads, it may not work in terms of you getting signups. Because if something falls through the cracks, then it's going to be obvious. You can't just copy something that works and then hopefully it works for you. It may not always work to that extent.
I think the other things I also heard what you say is, if you're not sure what works, go and ask around. And one of the things that the listener can explore is, if you're not sure what you're good at, you can always check in with your parents who paid for your tuition or your lessons and ask them, just curious, what actually made you sign up with me and not XYZ? And you'll be surprised at what they say. And a lot of times in my own experience, sometimes what they say is totally something different from what you're thinking. And then also the other thing that I can think of is be creative to explore different angles. I think one of the exercises that we can do is to write them down, at least 10, and then pull them out. But I think it's also a double-edged sword, because if we niche down too deep, sometimes the audience becomes too small to test.
Interestingly, we have also found that, let's say you are just targeting, for example, people that want to get the last 5 to get perfect score. Not a lot of people meet the criteria. What happens to someone who perceives? You think you might only attract that market, but what happens to someone who has that ambition? Maybe they're just passing borderline right now. They do have the ambition, or the parents do have the ambition that they want to get to A or higher. I think chances are they will still view you as this person that does seem to know how to get 100 marks. I think sometimes you also don't need to be afraid that if you niche down, you only attract that market. Because very oftentimes we get very weird reactions, like we run a PSLE ad, but then P1 sign up, that kind of thing. It's not always the case where you get the market that you think you are only getting. So as long as you're putting a message out there, you have a certain uniqueness that makes you hopefully stand out a bit more. And performance-wise on the numbers, it also works for you. Your cost per lead or whichever is good. And then you're getting consistent sign-up for them. If all these different factors seems to work, then you should just focus more on that.
So what I'm hearing is we may have some ideas on what we want to try. So go and try out and then run some campaigns and then get feedback from the market. Actually, a lot of times in the event of testing, we may realize what we thought works doesn't work. And then from the results, we may get surprises. So maybe we can double down on that. So I think it's very important to implement and then to experiment and then to really get data, and then you review with that data instead of trying to guess what will probably work.
The data also in terms of both, if you want cost per lead to be low, right? Honestly, there's a lot of things you can do to make cost per lead low, but I think you also want to balance that with what is the cost of the sign up. So I think you've got to have a mix of looking at both. Some things can give you a lot of leads, but it may not give you results. Or some things may give you very expensive cost per lead, but also very good sign up rate. So you need to balance with both of that to know.
And I think the balance comes with having an awareness of who you best serve, who is the target audience that you most enjoy working with, as well as an alignment with your zone of genius. Because ultimately, when we are able to function at that level, I think that's where the magic comes out.
If you have been teaching for a number of years, if you examine your history in terms of maybe even in school, which students tend to come to you more and stuff like that, I think inevitably you'll find some clues or signs of what you're really good at or what really makes you stand out. I think you should try to hone that or make that more prominent in your advertising.
I think it's a very fruitful conversation. So Gary, is there any other things that you feel that needs to be shared? We didn't get the opportunity to share that earlier on.
I think maybe just a quick mention on using AI these days. I think definitely you want to use it, but you don't want to overuse it in a sense, because you can assume that there are many of your competitors or other centers that tend to use a lot of AI. But I think you must still use it to generate good drafts, perhaps, or good ideas. But you still want to have that final touch on it yourself to make it stand out a bit more or look less all the other AI generated copy and stuff that's out there. I think that's important to have that personal touch. 99% of the people are using AI copy that looks like AI would type it, and then you are the 1% that put some personal effort, then you're going to stand out naturally a lot more. So you can also use that to your advantage.
And one of the things to remember is to remove the hashtag, the asterisks, as well as the emojis.
Oh, yeah.
Because ChatGPT tends to give you a lot.
I guess certain ones are good, but I think you definitely want to take a second look and make some proper edits. I think it's quite good for market research and things like that also. I think if you have certain questions about the market and all that, sometimes they do have good data to share for your market research and competitor research and all that.
The reason why I share that is because I think for people who are new to AI, I remember the time when I first used ChatGPT. Then I just copy and paste everything, including the asterisk and emojis. So straight away, my friends message me, hey, those are ChatGPT created, right? Can you at least do it in a smarter way? I think the other one key that you need the tutor or the educator before running ads, when you do Facebook ads, copywriting, like what Gary said, don't copy everything, like the whole draft and paste inside. You also need to have at least some basic knowledge of writing hook, writing headline, your USP, your unique selling point, as well as your call to action. And most importantly, when you read through the copyright, does it resonate with you? If the copy based on your AI data that you feed in is trying to sell an oral practice class or something, make sure that there's alignment as well. And when you read, it's really you out there saying it through your ads. Anything else that you want to add in before we can end this?
No, I think all good.
So Gary, if the listener wants to get in touch with you, how can they get in touch?
We have our website, so I think definitely can go to there for one. The one that we use for tuition will be tuitionmarketingformula.com.
Or one single word, no underscore.
No underscore anything. If you Google, you'll probably find it.
Again, for Gary, from my experience, I think at the moment, he's actually fully packed. So I'm not sure whether he's accepting new clients because most of his clients have multiple outlets or bigger or more established brands. So if you want to get in touch with him and you want to quickly connect with him, you can say that you heard from John. So Gary, thanks so much for your time.
Have a good day. Thanks.